President Biden is spending his final days in office on a valedictory tour. Now, here's one accomplishment he won't mention: a crisis on our southern border, which has spread chaos across our country, flooded our communities with fentanyl, and cost innocent American lives. Now, it's correct to call this one of President Biden's accomplishments. He intentionally reversed the Trump administration's border policies as soon as he reached the Oval Office. And it was by design, Mr. President, that millions of migrants who illegally crossed our southern border were released into our country. This self-inflicted disaster will be a major part of President Biden's ignominious legacy. And it is in part why Americans chose to return President Trump to office in November. When the American people voted for a Republican president and a Republican Congress, they were voting to restore the rule of law at the border. They were demanding that their government fulfill its constitutionally delegated duty to provide for their national security. They were demanding that their government do that. And they were arguing correctly that it is not discrimination for a nation to demand that those who seek to call it home do so legally. The American people want the return of common sense immigration policy. That's all. That's what I hear back home. But you see, this wasn't possible under President Biden. Beginning next week, we'll have a new president, and there will be no excuses. The open border policies must end. Criminal migrants must go. The number of Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers must be increased. Barriers to illegal entry must be expanded and enlarged. Republicans are working on legislation which will help accomplish all of these things and improve the security of our border, just like the American people expect. It will be too little too late for the family of Laken Riley, though. Of course, she should still be with us today. The man who murdered her last February should have never set foot in America. Her death was preventable. Her killer entered this country illegally and was quickly paroled. Then he was sent at taxpayer expense to New York, where he was arrested and released. If that was the end of the story, it would still be an outrage and an indictment of the failed Biden administration. But from there, he went to Georgia, you see, all courtesy of taxpayers, where he was arrested and freed again before brutally murdering Laken Riley. Weakening border enforcement, incentivizing criminals with specious asylum claims to cross our border, failing to detain and deport these very same people for crimes committed far away from it. These were the policies that led to Laken's death. This cannot happen again. Can't happen again to another American or to their family. That is why we need to pass the Laken Riley Act. It won't single-handedly end the crisis at our southern border. No, that's not its objective. But it's an important first step in the broader mission we've been assigned by the American people. Homeland Security must detain migrants charged with crimes. Here again, common sense. Crimes like shoplifting, one of the crimes for which Laken's killer was arrested. The bill we're currently debating, the Laken Riley Act, requires that they do this, and that we meet the objectives of the American people as it relates to border security. You see, enforcing immigration law is a national security priority. I began emphasizing this years ago. I know so many other Americans believe this in their bones. It's time Washington started acting like it. So this bill is one of many steps we should take to reverse the Biden administration's open border policies. Stop the madness. Stop the madness. I plead with my colleagues to support the Laken Riley Act. We should pass it now. Let President Biden have his victory tour, but starting next week, the insanity ends, and we begin to secure our border.